Welcome back to the series I'm Turning 30, everybody. My name is Mitch, and this is a series where I talk about my life, whether that's things that have happened in the past, things that are happening at present, things that will happen in the future, or a mixture of all three. And as you can see today, we're going to talk about religion. I figured this week was as good as any to talk about this. If you follow me on Instagram at all, I recently posted an article or a blog post or just a post, something, whatever you want to call it, that one of my friends recently wrote about being in an era or in this state of being post-Mormon. And honestly, I've been like sitting here for a while trying to figure out exactly what I would say kind of about my faith transition. This has been a topic that I've wanted to talk about since I started the series. This is one of the first topic ideas that I had. It's probably, I think, like the fourth thing on my list that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like I've never really had like a good time or a reason to, and I wanted to feel like I was sharing it at an appropriate time. And based on that post coming up and really kind of like resonating with me, I want to talk about it today and try to kind of put my thoughts around it, how my, I guess, religious journey has been, where it is right now, and where I think it will go. I'm not sure necessarily if it will be coherent. I definitely know everyone watching will not agree with how it's gone. In general, this is just, I think, a hard thing to talk about, specifically just for me and people that are close to me, because so many people are affected by it. For those that are new here that don't know, I'm from Utah, which is where many Mormons are based. And if you don't know what Mormon is, it's essentially another part of Christianity. They have a whole set of different rules and things. If you really want to get to the nitty gritty of it, please Google the details for yourself. But just know they are essentially a Christian group that believes that they are the one true church, like many other churches. And in Utah, it is the main religion there. Most people in the state are Mormon or LDS or part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, whatever you guys call yourselves nowadays. But I grew up in the religion, I was born into it, and that is where I guess the religious journey started. I will say, all growing up, not just when I was a kid, but just 0 to 18, any memories that I can have or remember, I feel like the entire way I never really felt strongly towards any type of religion in general, or to anything spiritual necessarily in general. I would always kind of drag my feet whenever I had to do anything related. I never had pep in my step or was excited to do anything related to any religion or hear about it or talk about it. I never got excited or was intrigued at the idea of these things. Now, I don't know if that's because I grew up in it and I just heard about it every Sunday when I had to go to church, and I feel like I already knew everything that I needed to know. But even the stuff that I was learning on Sundays was just, again, I never really loved going to church. It was, sometimes it was a nice getaway. I could see people that I thought were fun to hang out with. Sometimes you get to do cool things, but the core essence of being there was never an exciting aspect to me. I feel like part of growing up in religion and making sure that you know that it's right for you is asking questions and having conversations with people. Now, I definitely could have done more of that, I think, growing up, but I didn't have necessarily zero. I would also often go on church experiences or activities, or again, just church itself, listen to lessons. I actively learned a lot about the church inside the church, and again, you're essentially given the decision to make out for yourself what you believe, and you can have those conversations and questions with people, but ultimately at the end of the day you have to decide for yourself in your core what you believe. And again, like I said, growing up I really struggled with this idea. I never felt super connected to the church or any of its teachings, but I necessarily wasn't like opposed to a lot of things. There are certain like viewpoints that I may not have agreed with, but I think like overall I decided, just growing up in it and like my family was a part of it, it was more of a positive, and that like I should kind of just stick with it. And I feel like now looking back, it was more so of an obligation to me, not necessarily because I wanted to be there. I was doing it just as a favor or because I felt obliged to do so, and not because it felt right to me. but more so as kind of like apathetic essentially towards it. Like, I don't have anything better going on. I don't have like any better belief system or way to live. Plus, so many of your peers while you're living in Utah are part of this, and it's really easy to connect with people and talk to people if you're in it. So it's like, it really made sense to kind of just stick with it, even though it wasn't like my favorite thing. And now, just not being connected with it my entire life and having those conversations, we get up to the age of 18. Now, I had finished high school and I was waiting to turn 19 to go on something called a mission. Now, a mission in the LDS Church, or the Mormon Church, is when a young man leaves for 2 years to go talk about the church in another country. For young women, it used to be a slightly older age. I believe it's 21. I think it was 21, and they would serve for a year and a half, and they would do the same thing. Now, like I said, I was 18 and kind of waiting for this moment to turn 19 and kind of just go and have this part of my life over with. It felt like it was like kind of the next thing on the checklist after graduating high school. It was like, okay, you have this like weird period of time. You can't really go to college because you're gonna go on this mission thing, so you kind of just have to hang out and wait till you turn 19. So I essentially put my life on hold after high school to check the next thing off the checklist and kind of, like I said, just kind of go through the motions, kind of be apathetic toward the whole thing and stay in it just because that was what I was kind of supposed to do, or what was kind of just the natural way my life should go. However, when I was about like 18 and a half-ish, they have a giant conference where they talk about different news and things that are kind of going on in the church, and it was during that conference that they changed the age, I believe, to everybody, or maybe just, it might be young men were 18 and young women were 19, but they changed the age that people could serve missions. So that meant at that moment I was immediately eligible to go on a mission, and I remember telling my parents, I want to get the papers to start this process right now. And the reason that I did that, I don't know if I told them specifically, but the reason that I did that is because I wanted to leave as soon as possible so I could come back as soon as possible and start the next period of my life. Because this was essentially the last point on the checklist for a young man in the church. There is the point of getting married as well, but that's like across just cultures. That's just what a lot of people do. This is like the last like big like only Mormons do this type of thing. And I could finally check it off and not necessarily be done with it, because I didn't think I was going to just be done with it, but like that was the last big thing, and then I can kind of just coast. I don't have to worry about doing these big grand things. I can kind of just coast through the church and not have to do these big things. Let's go on the mission. Let's get it done. I want to go, come back, and get on with my life. And that's what I did. I left as soon as possible, and I came back as soon as possible. In fact, a lot of my friends will tell you that I actually served less than 2 years, because I did come back about a month early, because there was some weird thing on the cards that we got when we first entered, and the time that they were changing how long you were training for, and this like little training center that you would go to before you went to the country you were supposed to go to. And I left on March 6th in 2013, and I came back in like February 10th or 13th or something in February. So almost a full month, about 3 weeks early. And so I didn't necessarily serve the full 2 years. And as soon as I was in Mexico doing this thing, again, while it was like an exciting thing to go do, again, I was pretty apathetic and kind of just went through the motions most of the time. There were definitely high notes where I probably tried a little bit more, especially at times where I had to train somebody that was new. That was definitely a point where I felt like I was maybe at my highest religiously. While I was being apathetic, there's not a whole lot you can do, or you're allowed to do, or you're supposed to do while you're on your mission, especially because you're paired with somebody else that knows these same rules. So you don't have much that you can do unless you're both on the same page about doing something that you shouldn't do, which is hard to bring up. But anyways, that's besides the point. And while that did happen sometimes, I don't have like any like big stories. Like, sure, every once in a while a movie was watched, you know, near the end of my mission. Sure, I played video games one day. Like that didn't affect, I don't think, the whole mission in and of itself, but sometimes those things would happen, and that's not part of the apathy, or at least I don't think it is. And I don't think that necessarily detracted from the entire experience in itself, or nulled it, or made it void, or made it any less, or anything like that. I had to talk about probably my biggest problems on my mission to certain people, kind of trying to overcome those challenges and come to terms with kind of like who I was and what I had done. During my mission, I read the entirety of the Bible. I read the entirety of the Book of Mormon, which, if you don't know, if you're not Mormon, the Book of Mormon is essentially another piece of doctrine that Mormons have that they believe is the Word of God as well. There were more approved readings as well, such as the Pearl of Great Price, the Doctrine and Covenants, and a set of like 4 books. They're like blue and red. I don't remember what they're called off the top of my head right now. If I can find it while I'm editing, I'll put it on screen right here somewhere. But I read these like 4 books that were also allowed as well. I read every single religious text essentially that we were allowed to read on our mission, because what is encouraged again for even people on the mission is make sure what you know you're teaching is right for you, that it's part of who you are, like that you believe it. And that's something they just tell you to do in general with the church. Like even when you're not on a mission, you're supposed to study the religious texts, pray about them, ask for guidance about the passages, do a whole lot of things to make sure that it's the right thing, that you believe it. Now, being on the mission, it wasn't the first time that I had necessarily read scriptures, but it was the first time where I sat down and read cover to cover, just like all in one go, essentially. And so I read them and I would pray about them afterwards, and you know, like I said, I've never had like an overwhelming just sense of anything regarding it. I've never felt like it's like bad either. It's just like I like think about it. I'm like, yeah, like the teaching, a lot of the teachings in it, not all of them, a lot of the teachings in it are like good, or they have like good, like at least like groundwork or something is there, you know, like, but at the same time, I never got this just like overwhelming thing, or just like this recognition, or even just like over time, just like this slow buildup or anything like that. There's just like that you're supposed to, at least like how I was taught, there's supposed to be a feeling. You're supposed to know it. You're supposed to just like, it's supposed to hit you, and you're just supposed to be like, I definitely believe this is what is true and right. And I just never had that revelation. Like it never just like felt right to me, but it was just there. Like it just existed. And so I came home, and even after I came home, I actively tried to go to church on my own. Me and my best friend would go to all these activities. We would really try to immerse ourselves in church culture. There was a lot of things that I did after I got back. Like, I'm gonna try, this is like all I know, I'm gonna try to like stick this out. And the apathy just kind of returned, and my just feelings towards it returned, and it was just like, now that I'm older, I don't have like this checklist that I have to do as I'm kind of growing up in the church. There's just no more levels for me to get to. The apathy returned because that's who I am at my core. I just don't have this strong feeling towards the church or the beliefs in it. There are certain aspects that I think are right and wrong. Gosh, what do I want to say here? Not having strong beliefs in it, just for me, I can't base my worldview on them, because I just don't feel anything towards them. I'd rather have like this personal belief about what is right, wrong, what we should not do, that I feel like is correct, because that feels more just like solid to me than this other belief system. Now again, I know many people that are watching this have this belief system, and I'm sorry if you're angry or upset at me for this. I'm great. If the belief system works for you, totally happy for you. That's great. I think the church has so much good foundational pieces in it. There's just parts I just flat out don't agree with, or that I'm just really apathetic towards, don't care about. Super stoked it works for you and it makes you happy. It just doesn't work for me. I'm gonna link it in the description box below. Please, if you did not read the post that I linked, please go and read it. I am not an anti-Mormon. I love, like, I didn't even really know the term post-Mormon at all. I'm not anti. I don't really have those kinds of feelings towards the church at all. To be frank, I don't really have any feelings towards just any religion in general, or towards any higher power that may or may not exist. And I don't want to get into the points, every single nitty-gritty point that I disagree with, or that I think is actually a good thing that the church teaches people, and why, even like telling people about the church, like going on the mission and like telling people about the church, even though I'm not in it, was pretty apathetic about it. Like, I think I helped a lot of people, regardless of if they're still active, people that I talked to that were active. There is an experience, and I think just a reason in general that you go places and you meet people. So I don't regret those 2 years on my mission at all. I think that, again, there is a lot of groundwork, and people can be helped by having this community around them and these, I would say, a lot of the time, pretty good morals if they are confused on how to live morally. I think the church gives you a very safe place to be morals wise if you struggle making your own morals for yourself. But yeah, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of good, bad, okay, average type of things in the aspect of the church or just religion in general. I already know this video is going to be long, so definitely wouldn't be able to fit all that into a video that people would want to watch, and that would be coherent enough because, again, if you don't know about the series, I don't write a script. I turn on the camera, I'm like, this is the topic I'm talking about, and I sit here, look at the lens, and I'm like, yep, and words just come out. I start just making sentences and hope that everybody kind of understands what I'm talking about and my feelings on the matter, because I feel like that is more genuine and my point can come across better. Sometimes I think that I may contradict myself or it may be confusing to follow, but I'm again just spewing thoughts out here. The whole point behind this series was to talk about my life, talk about who I am, what has made me, and this topic was going to get covered sooner or later because it has been a huge part and still is, even though I'm not in it. Religion and the church, Mormon church, has a huge play on who I am as a person. I've briefly mentioned it in fleeting aspects in other videos, but eventually the topic in itself needs to be discussed, and here I am at, again, like, I think just kind of a midline, really apathetic. I'm not really interested in anything that goes on in the church right now, don't really care. I have my own set of morals and beliefs to live by that I feel like is totally chill, and I think I know a long range of people on both sides of the spectrum. So yeah, there wasn't like a point in my journey or this certain topic or this one thing. It's just been like my whole life has just been like this kind of like, I feel like I'm always at this baseline, and while like certain actions may kind of like help, I don't know how to like properly articulate just like how much it's just like meh to me. But who knows? This is the I'm Turning 30 series, and if you've watched any of the videos, including this one, you will notice at the beginning I also say that I will talk about things in the future. Am I open to the idea of accepting a religion in the future, regardless of what it is? Maybe it's not the Mormon church, just a religion in general. Probably not. I'm not really interested. I, especially right now, like, I'm turning 30. I'm not even really looking to date anybody that is necessarily religious at this point. So I can't say that that's something that's super important to me for my immediate future. Who knows? Maybe when I'm much older, I will have a switch flip in my head, but I don't right now, or have this feeling that it will change really anytime soon. And this is going to sound maybe condescending, but like, those are kind of crumbs of hope for those of you that hope I do come back. I think it's a low chance, if I'm being honest with you, but I hope that that helps you feel better about my situation. I don't want you to necessarily feel sad about it, but this is who I am. I don't know what else to say. One of the final things I want to say on the topic, and questions people might have when they see this video, is why didn't you tell us sooner? Why did it take this long? Why did you do X, Y, Z? And I'm going to be honest, like I said, it was really easy to kind of just go with the flow. And sometimes it was fear. Fear of this, if I didn't do what was kind of normal for my life and kind of expected of me, the change is scary. Like, I was a teenager. I didn't have like a plan if I would have stopped. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I would have had to go anywhere specifically. There was a lot of things that I was scared of happening. And again, the mission really was like this last checklist thing, because it was like the last big thing that you have to do. And then as soon as that's over, it's like a weight was released off of me. Like, I've done everything for the church that it wants somebody to really do. Obviously, there are things that you can do in the church that still help it, but it's like the last big, like, accomplishment or thing that's like put upon you, like, you should do this, you need to do this. And once I had completed it, it was like a weight had lifted off of my shoulders, this giant pressure, and this thing I could kind of just live without and figure out my own path. Again, I don't know if that made any sense or not, but yeah. And I briefly want to talk about other religions in general. I've lived in Japan and Mexico and the US, so I've gotten my fair share of different religions and how they are and what people believe and spirituality and things like that. Plus my own journey of searching and just talking to people. And the final thing I'll just say about religion in general is, if it gives you a future to look forward to, great. If that's what makes you happy, is knowing that there's something in this afterlife, if that's what keeps you going every day, is knowing that there's an afterlife waiting for you, great. If it helps you set your morals like I talked about in the video, that's great. If it gives you good morals and makes you a great citizen and a good person, I'm stoked for you about that. If it makes you happy, being in a religion makes you happy, then continue being in that religion. You should do what makes you happy. And happy in the long term. Not happy in the short term. Happy in the short term is also good, and you need that to get by day. But think about a long-term happiness and what will really help you. I think I could continue rambling on and talking about religion again, because it is just such a huge part of my life, and I have a lot of feelings and memories and experiences and etc, and more and more and more. There is a lot that I could talk about. The video is already long. If there's something you deeply want me to talk about and you've made it this far in the video, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to chat it out with you there. You can reach out to me on Instagram or any social media. You can give me a phone call on the app called Line, or social media apps. There's plenty of ways to contact me about any of these specific things. I'm more than open to having a conversation about it. But my light is dying for the camera is dying, the memory is going away, so I need to end the video here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video in the series, I'm Turning 30. This was a deeper topic, probably one of the more intense and interpersonal things that I've talked about, but I appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope that you can continue to support me, that you appreciate how open I was about it. I love you so much, and I will see you guys again next week. Peace.